Okay, make sure sound is on. I don't know. Hopefully that works. Okay, so we're here. I want to thank you guys for coming first, and we're going to talk about several things. But before we get started, can we just kind of go around and make some introductions? Of course, we know each other, but just for anyone else, C.Tatman, assistant principal.
Lauren Boone, principal.
Tina Hudgens, instructional coach. And Kimberly Hendricks, second grade teacher.
Okay, so y'all all have a little packet today, and so we're going to, on our agenda, we're going to talk about our mission and vision for East Elementary a little bit, and then our focus today is for some walkthrough data. So we're going to look at some walkthrough forms from other schools, we're going to look at some information from our school, and then we're going to, we won't completely finish it in this meeting, but kind of have an idea of what we might look through that would be useful if we were walking through classrooms. So I'll kind of guide you guys through that and just get some input from you guys since you're in classrooms all the time and on the campus, and we'll see if we can kind of think about something that might be useful. And I have something in mind, but I'm open to other thoughts. So on the first page, I just wanted to take us back to our mission and vision for East Elementary. And on the beginning where it says mission, we will lead, grow, and serve, where it says every student, every day, every lesson, I wanted us to keep that in mind for kind of what we're talking about, because we know that when we're looking at classrooms and we're going through them, we are looking for every student, not just the struggling and not just the average, but we're also looking for ways to grow our higher students too and give them some enrichment. So I think everyone's pretty familiar with our paper. We have this in all our classrooms now. But also at the bottom, some important things to remember is that our goal for common assessments and benchmarks and leading to STAR is 90, 60, 30. Okay, so just kind of keep that in mind as we look at the next page, which is our Texas Academic Performance Report. Have you guys seen this before? Have y'all ever looked at this? I know you have. We've looked at it. So basically, yeah, it gives
exactly.
it gives us like our STAR scores and percentages for last year. And this report is much longer, but I just thought this page 3, was the most relevant. So I highlighted on there for you guys from 2025 what it looks like for 4th grade math, 4th grade reading, 3rd grade math, 3rd grade reading. So if our goal is 90, 60, 30, are we making that?
No.
Not yet.
Not yet. But okay, so let's look at 4th grade math. Let's start at the bottom of the page and kind of go up. Looking at it, we are at 79, 55, 28. Do we still think that 90, 60, 30 is achievable?
Yes.
Absolutely.
We're not that far, right?
No.
Especially meets and masters.
Yeah, we're not that far at all. What about 4th grade reading? We're at 78, 41, 13.
That's where we need some work there.
Yeah, it's a little.
30% is going to be a little.
The 30% at masters is going to be a little bit hard to reach. So we're keeping in mind, like, from this, and our goal 90, 60, 30. Okay, looking at 3rd grade math, we're at 75,
Which is
53.
our 3rd grade math and 3rd grade reading is our cohort that is in 4th grade now.
Mm-hmm. So they were pretty high achieving. If we look at, especially reading, if we look at 3rd grade reading, which are our current 4th graders. Okay,
That's pretty close.
84, 56, 19, they were really close. So if they were really close, and we know how we get points on STAR too, we are also keeping that in mind. They really have they have to grow, right? They all have to grow. But we were close on that. We know that group is capable, very capable and close. What else, Ms. Boone? What were you thinking about that?
No, I think you're spot on. That group is very capable, but if you look at the one furthest from that goal, that 90, 60, 30 goal in RLA would be that master's level. So like you were saying, every student, every day, every lesson, and really looking at the kids who we need to be pushed toward that mastery level and need those extension projects and different things like that. So I think that's important to remember.
So that leads me obviously I was kind of looking at this before. So when we look at our campus vision and mission, and we talk about every student, every lesson, every day, and then also on our mission and vision at the bottom where it says how we're going to get to these things, we're going to make data-driven decisions for instruction, Tier 2, Tier 3 small group instruction to fill in gaps for students, provide supports through MTSS, 504, SPED, and then our goal. So I think that looking at the walkthroughs that we do in our school right now, we have our formal T-tests, and that's kind of how we all know what's happening in classrooms, right? We have our formal T-test, but that only gives us, that's like a 45-minute kind of whatever. The other two that we do are T-test based walkthroughs, and then we have Fundamental 5 walkthroughs. So through those, we're focusing more on Tier 1, okay? And we've already, like through our supports for MTSS, 504, and SPED, we have a pretty good grip on that, and we know that because our SPED referrals have come down. We know that in MTSS we've made adjustments in a lot of ways, but the one area I think that maybe we haven't done a lot of walking through and watching and making sure that we're using really carefully might be prime time. What do you guys think about that? Would you agree?
I agree. Yes.
Do you agree?
100%.
Okay, so when you're kind of around, I was thinking prime time, which is really our chance, like Ms. Boone said, not to only get our kids that need remediation and need intervention, but if we're really trying to get to that 30% for masters, that's our kids that, yes, they're getting it, but we need to push them a little further too. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But those are the kids that aren't probably getting pulled out, so that's when they should be meeting with them during prime time.
And what do you normally see them doing during that time?
Already.
On a computer, right?
Yes.
So what we're thinking is we want to get the walkthrough data that kind of supports that so that we can see that. So before we hone in too much on that, if y'all will flip past this taper report, we're going to look at some walkthroughs that are from other school districts and from different things, and we're just going to get some ideas from these, and then that'll help us when we get to the next part to make our own walkthrough. So these are just things different people look for and different formats that we can look at. So looking at the first one where it's a focus walkthrough, just kind of take a second to look at it, and then we'll see what you guys think. So for this focus, they're looking at the standards based, so the language of the standards, if the goals are communicated, focus vocabulary. Then they're looking at the instruction with transitions and rigor. They're looking at grouping. And then they're looking at the
high yield instructional strategies.
high yield instructional strategies. So overall, I think it's a good walkthrough. Do you think that that's a good form, but do we think that do we see anything on this that would help us with prime time? Because we can kind of take bits and pieces from these. Do you think this is anything that's...
Maybe grouping.
That's what I was thinking. And differentiation, I mean, that's kind of low level observation though. That's not really pinpointing any, I mean, that's kind of obvious that we're looking for.
Well, including the rigor is appropriate, so depending on the group that they're working with, you can.
Okay. Okay, so obviously this isn't one that would, right as it stands, help us from prime time, but knowing on ours that we probably want to put something that we're looking for with grouping, differentiation, and rigor. And probably, it's wise to look at standards for a teacher to know what skills specifically they're looking at. Okay. All right, let's look at the next one. This came from Lake Forest North Elementary School, not to be confused with our district's north. Okay, so they're looking for what the students were doing, what the teacher was doing, evidence of school-wide and district initiatives, evidence of positive climate and teacher efficacy. So is there anything from this? I think noticing what students are doing versus teacher, because what would you expect the teacher to do during prime time?
Be working with a small group.
Not at her table by herself, not in the hall talking, which we have seen some of. It's not a second conference, right? So I think we would be looking, even if we didn't have this exact checklist, noticing students were doing this, teacher was doing that, would be helpful. At this point, where it says evidence of school-wide district initiatives, are we as worried during prime time about any objectives being posted necessarily?
No, because everybody could possibly be working on a different objective.
Yeah.
Prime time.
Yeah, that hopefully. What about positive climate?
Yes, because if she's trying to work with a small group, the rest of the class needs to be busy and
productive, so that they're not all over.
Yes.
And
which is another reason sometimes it's your higher kids who are bored, and so they're going to just find something to do, and that can, not only hurt them but hurt the small group of struggling learners that the teacher's having to work with. So I agree, it's very important.
Okay, so I'm going to put For this one, I'm just circling that I think we do want to look for what are students doing, what is the teacher doing, and then the climate, meaning mostly like, is it conducive for learning? Or students busy and is the room conducive for learning?
Are they engaged? Are they compliant? Or are they off task? And like engaged is like, is it new? Is it relevant to them? Can they hide? Can somebody else do their work? If not, like they are engaged in what they're doing. If they're compliant, they're just kind of sit and get. They're not really involved in the lesson. And then off task would be good to look at to see, you know, if they're off task and it's going to impede the learning of the other students.
So that could even go under, when we make our own form in a second, where it says the students were, that could be a check, like engaged, compliant, on task. That could be
And
good.
we could even, you know, how many kids were engaged, how many kids were compliant, how many kids were off task, if we wanted to break it down like that. Or we could just like rank like most, few, little, or however we wanted to do that.
Okay.
Because don't want to make it too hard, so we
Yeah,
can.
we'll go through, which when we look at our Fundamental 5.1 last, we can kind of see what that looks like. Okay. We'll look at this one. It says responsive classroom walkthrough. And this is just from one I pulled online.
Almost all students are on task.
Okay, so we can like that just to start with. All or almost all students are on task, calm, using soft or medium voices. Almost all students respectfully interact with classmates. Okay, those are both good. Okay, and then when we come down to management. Okay, engaged and interesting. 3 to 5 classroom rules are posted. Are we worried about that during the... Okay, so we'll mark that one out. But we like all of those first 3. Morning meeting, when that wouldn't apply. Teacher speaks to students, calm, respectful. Always, right? Teacher uses predictable signal to gain student attention.
I think that just goes
necessarily
with
required.
Kind of routine, right? Teachers wait until all students are quiet and paying attention before speaking. Again, with a small group, hopefully their routines are enough that she's not having to do that. So I don't think that's a good one to put on our walkthrough. Teacher uses reinforcing language rather than general praise to specifically and descriptively name behaviors of students. Probably not the biggest bang. Yeah. Teacher interactively models or provides clear instructions. Teacher responds respectfully and consistently to misbehavior. I don't know if we're really zoning in on prime time, that those things, yes, we're going to notice, but I don't know if that's on our checklist. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What are we trying to focus on? Not
Yes. I mean, because
what are they doing?
from a coach's standpoint, if the classroom management isn't already there, you will have to address that before you get picky enough to say exactly what we're doing in prime time. You would address that first, because no prime time will be effective. And just another thing, I remember we talked about a bunch of times. Prime time, I think I probably should have said at the beginning, and we know this, but is built in time into our schedule for our teachers, and we think of it as what I need time. So it really should be a pausing of regular instruction, and this is when a lot of our kids are pulled out for dyslexia, reading intervention, math intervention, all of those things. So the kids that are left, we just want to see what teachers are doing with those kids that are left. So I don't think classroom organization to this degree, if we're looking at that, is probably the most bang for our buck on those walkthroughs. Okay, the last one that we're looking at, this is actually what we use in our district for Fundamental 5, and it's on, we do them on our phones. It populates to a Google Sheet, so that's why it had a teacher's name at the top. It's the best way I could just kind of like print it out from there. And I like that because then they collect the data for each campus and you can go back and look at it. So Fundamental 5, we're looking for those high impact teaching strategies. And so the first thing we look at is what content are they in RLA, math, etc. And if you observe the beginning, middle, or end of the lesson, and then where's the teacher standing, because that's one of the Fundamental 5 is the power zone, right? So we're looking to see if the teacher's like at her desk. I love that it says not in the room, lecture position, or power zone. And we've said with small children, if they're on the carpet, they call that the power zone if the teacher's right there with the students. That means she's actively teaching and right there. Whereas like the lecture position is more like everyone's back and away, and she's, it's not as interactive. And then student engagement, it has that too. How many are on task, how many are off task. So in a minute we'll have to decide if we want to do like an all sum or a number. And then lesson framing for Fundamental 5 is really big. I don't think that we have agreed that we don't need that so much for prime time, so we'll mark that off. But I think we do want those two. Okay, and then the high yield instructional practices, do we think that would make sense for prime time to know if they're identifying similarities and differences, note making, non-linguistic representations? Is that the biggest bang for our buck when we're doing these prime time walkthroughs, we think?
I think it's always good to look at what the instructional practices are.
I think they would be a little bit different for small group than they would be for
Yes,
whole group. But
yes,
yeah.
and that's what I was gonna say too, once we get down here.
And I think depending on which grade level you're in, because small group for kindergarten might be on the floor or the table, or it might look more like a game, whereas if you get up to 4th grade, small group table will 9 times out of 10 always be at a table, and it's like paper pencil back and forth, like, you know what I mean? It's just gonna look different grade level. So, and then the next one here is their instructional relevance. So,
And that's the one I was gonna talk about, instructional relevance of what are the other kids doing, what's their instructional relevance, and then what are the kids at the small group table doing.
okay.
Because what the other kids are doing, we do wanna see some students working on application, real world, novel outcomes. But then at their small group table, if they're working on just filling a gap, it might just be knowledge in that content area that they don't have yet. And that's okay to be in that. I'd rather see it during prime time at the teacher table than tier 1 instruction. So I think we might have to, I think it would be good to look at what are the students doing that aren't at the teacher table, and then what is the instructional relevance for the students that are at the teacher table, if they're there.
Okay, well, let's start making it. I'm just gonna paper it out right now, and then we might put it on like a sheet later. But if we were going to do prime time walkthroughs, first let's think about how long would we, or maybe we should come back to that. So keep in mind, how long would we need to be in a room to observe what we do? Because I want to put that back at the top, because Fundamental 5, we're usually in there just a couple minutes to be able to fill that out, because it's a quick snapshot of what's happening in that moment. And like we even did one together one day, and the teacher, she was kind of transitioning and she was whatever, and I'd started it, and then I was like, oh, but she's getting in the lecture position now, should I change it? And technically it was like, no, it's like when you walk in the door, what are they doing right when you walk in the door? So when
There's a lot of times when principal or admin or anybody walks into the room, if they're sitting at their desk, they're gonna get up. So for the power zone part, standing outside the classroom and looking in before you walk in, so you get a clearer picture of that. But I think the main thing is like, do they have a small group of students? Are there students that they are working with at their teacher table? Like, we at least need that.
So if we want to see what is the teacher doing, do you guys think it would be better to type it in real quick or have like a drop down?
Have a drop down.
Yeah.
What would the choices be for the drop down?
Working with a small group.
Working with small group, or it could be like a circle either. Okay, working with a small group or not. Or
Working on.
Or working in whole
computer,
group, you can just say
okay.
if she doesn't have a small group, but she's.
A bigger group of students,
whole group.
Depending
Okay.
on who's left in her class.
Now we have seen teachers like this. I feel like we should have a third option, like she's working with a small group, she's working with a whole group, or working with no students. Is that a good way to put it? I'll work on the exact wording to make it a little better. Working with no students. Okay, so what is the teacher doing? Then you said don't just say what are the students doing, say what are, like in an ideal world, the teacher does have a small group, so we want to say what is the small group of students doing, what are the rest. So if we say what are the small group what should our options be for that? The small group of students doing, what are they doing? Do we want to do content, or do we want to say math, RLA, writing, or do we want to have
I'm saying just, are they working on a specific skill?
That might be better as a type in.
Yes, I think that
Instead
might
of
be
a drop-down,
better.
'cause that'd be a lot of.
A lot of different choices. It could be anything.
Or should one of the options be that they are completing work because it wasn't really a planned group, but they're trying to finish work that kids didn't already
Yeah.
do?
Mm-hmm.
Completed work. It could even be whether they're working on tier 1 activities or more, tier
Yeah.
2.
And I think if we're all aligned on that, it might not necessarily have to be a drop down, but we could just know finishing
This is what
work.
we're putting
I mean,
Mhm.
that's what they're doing, finishing work,
Okay.
finishing tier 1 work.
So basically, we're trying to figure out, is the teacher doing like a pre-determined, I've looked at the skills, I know where either they need enrichment or to work on a gap, or is she, which I know we all have to do sometimes, but is she just completing work and she's just going by that, or does she have a pre-plan for one or the other? So specific skill, I almost want to put like pre-planned beside it, and maybe we'll think of another name later, or completing work,
Like incomplete work, unfinished work.
almost like,
yeah.
would that be reactive? Like, I don't know, I don't want it to sound, I know teachers have to do that, but it's not really what we intend the majority of prime time to be.
Look, if they're finishing work, that's different than if they've already completed some of the work and you notice a misconception and you're like, oh, I'm gonna address that during prime time, like I'm gonna do that. Versus like, they just didn't finish and they're, because if you're gonna be able to tell if they're completing work that they just didn't finish or if they truly have a misconception, because the teacher's not gonna be leading them much if they're just.
And they shouldn't be finishing work unless they actually need help with it. If they
Yeah.
need to finish work, they can do that at their
Mhm.
That's
desk
true.
unless,
That's
unless
true.
they're not understanding.
I think that might be an appropriate place to have like a little type-in box. What do y'all think?
And we can even add, in parentheses after the question, we could give some examples of like what we might type in.
That would be smart,
Just
just to keep us on the same page.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so far we had, what is the teacher doing? What are the small groups of students doing? Now we need, what are the rest of the class doing? What is the rest of the class doing? Okay, and then you said over here. Do we want to put, okay, so engaged, compliant, or on task? Do we want to put a number, like so many engaged, so many on task, so many compliant? Or do you just want to do majority, like when you take a snapshot? What do you guys think would be more helpful if we're trying to kind of catch trends in grade levels or
I
school-wide?
think if we're just starting this up, walkthroughs during prime time, we should just do some,
You could do all, almost all, or some.
yeah.
All, almost all, or some.
And I might even take out the compliant for right now and just put engaged off task. And
Keep
you
it
might
simple.
put as option as none, cause we're gonna wanna see if.
If there's
Okay.
no
If
students
everyone's on
off
ta-
task,
yeah.
then
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. All right, so we have, what is the teacher doing? What is the small group of students doing? What are the rest of the class doing? We're going back to what we like on the rest. Do we want to do some kind of evidence of grouping? Like, what would we be able to see? Some teachers are going to have it like up on a Canva on their board.
It might be a choice board of what students are going through
And they
during
just
prime
pull who
time.
they need at that time.
Mm-hmm.
because it should fluctuate, it should change based on need for during prime time, so it wouldn't be a set group.
I would say almost for prime time, we wouldn't wanna see
We want it to be
rotations.
more authentic.
It needs to be, yeah, cause it's
But
gonna
would
change
you-
so much.
Would it matter to you if you did see that? Would that be good data to collect? Because maybe that's a misconception of prime time. If you saw that, you might think, I wonder if they realize they can be more flexible.
Yeah, if you actually saw them rotating, yes,
Okay.
like, or
So
do
you
they
would
just
have to
still
be
have
in
it
there for
posted?
a while. And
Yeah.
if you're trying to see students rotating from the teacher table, you're gonna have to be in there a good chunk of time to see evidence of that.
I agree. So if we're really trying to give them like the opportunity for us to check as many positive things as we want, then we're gonna have to hang out long enough to give them a chance to see it.
At least
A couple of rotations.
Yeah.
And then again, we know between kindergarten and fourth grade, which is what we're gonna be, which kindergarten doesn't have prime time, I guess. So first grade through fourth grade, it's going to look different on each one.
Mhm.
So just with what we've got so far, we're thinking like what, probably 15 to 20 minutes minimum.
Probably.
Yeah. Okay.
But you could maybe put your evidence. So here you were doing, what was the teacher doing? Working with small groups. Maybe you could have something here. Didn't you have something that was based on evidence, or that they had a group that they were working on a specific skill with?
She wrote pre-planned.
Pre-planned,
She wanted,
yes.
Yes.
Like
pre-planned.
evidence of like, what would your evidence be? Maybe they just have the notebook out beside them, or they had something. And it just because you
Already
didn't see it doesn't
report
necessarily mean they
data
didn't
from
have
a
it.
test. Yes.
Maybe that's, do you think just having it in the notes? Because I'm thinking that you would circle either specific skill or completing work, and then in the notes you could say already reports, or they had whatever.
Maybe put notes / evidence, because then we could
Evidence.
say we saw.
Because that could be where your evidence of your groupings are,
Mm-hmm.
how they're pulling their kids.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. And yeah, it might not be a negative thing if we can't tell. It just means that maybe they are doing it right, and it's based on what they've seen. Okay, so what is the teacher doing? What are small groups of students doing at the table, and what is the rest of the class doing? Do we want to? We circled rigor. Do we still feel like that's something that we want to?
Yes, because if
Do?
they're working with an extension group, it needs to be something that's pushing them and not just reviewing.
Okay. So if we put rigor, what do we want to look for with rigor? Like, how will we be able to tell what rigor is?
I would almost use what we use for Fundamental 5 and like instructional relevance of small group, instructional relevance of other students.
Do we like these exact categories?
You know.
Or do we want to narrow it down any? Knowledge and content, application?
Or we can just put, are they working below level, on level, or is it an extension activity? I would think we would be able
Feel
to
like
tell
that?
if it
Yeah.
was an extension activity.
Tier 1 activity, Tier 2 activity, or extension.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that simplifies it a little bit. And then again, we could have a evidence
Mm-hmm.
place to write some notes if you saw something particular. So rigor of small group, rigor of other students that are out, I always say out in the wild, like the ones that are out by themselves. Okay, and then for each one of those, is it appear to be Tier 1, Tier 2, or extension, and then your evidence for each one. I like that. Okay, and then we did talk about that we felt like classroom climate was important in there. So what are we looking for classroom climate? What do y'all think would be important to look for?
Students aren't interrupting the small group table.
Mm-hmm.
Like they know what they're supposed to be doing and not.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that's routines and procedures?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And procedures conducive for learning, basically.
Mm-hmm. And that might just be a yes or a no, and it knows.
That kind of falls into the engaged or off-task part. Again,
Mhm.
you've already answered that, so
Yeah.
I think just even that one.
Mm-hmm.
Just yes, no.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're right. It's probably going to lend itself if you've got 100%
Very
engaged, then you're going to say
engaged.
yes. It's going to kind of
Mm-hmm.
be a little bit.
Hand in hand.
And that's probably one I would move up to just follow right there with it. Okay, classroom climate. Okay, now looking back on, see if there's anything from these other walkthroughs that we want to steal or use or that we think is important.
I would definitely end with 2 things: celebrations or
Okay.
positive look-fors, or however you want to put that.
Grows and glows.
Yeah, however you want to.
Okay, now when you say that, it makes me think, typically with walkthroughs, we don't give, well, I guess there's not typical. With Fundamental 5 walkthroughs, the teachers don't ever see that. That's just our data collecting.
Mm-hmm.
With our T-test walkthroughs, the teachers get notes on that and they get to look at them. So looking at the walkthrough that we are making right now for prime time, is this a walkthrough where we want to give teachers some feedback? We want to use it as a growth tool to help shape, because we're trying to get to 90, 60, 30 and we want to make sure we're using the time right.
I mean, I would appreciate knowing
Mhm.
if
If us-
I'm doing it right
And
or
I
wrong.
think you can,
or
they
if
can
I'm-
see the fundamental 5 walkthroughs, they just have to be looking, they
Oh,
have to
can they?
look for it. I don't know if it emails it to them.
Oh, okay.
Like, you know, if it,
Mhm.
you get a walkthrough, it like sends you an email to go
Mhm.
sign. I don't know.
That's a
Let's
good
check
one.
on that.
Good to know.
And we
Um,
might just say we're calibrating it first,
Mhm.
just to see, like, make sure we're all on the same page. But they still should get feedback.
I think
Yeah.
anytime someone sits in your room and takes notes for 15 to 20 minutes, it might be a little unnerving to not.
Mhm.
Not good.
Not
get some
know-
feedback and
yeah,
then-
even if it's just an email follow up about what you
Mhm.
saw.
Okay.
Mhm.
So we want to give a place to put basically a glow or a grow for the teacher to get some
Or
feedback.
like positive, I would say positive and then like next steps.
Positive and
Or celebrations, next
Next
steps,
steps.
something like that.
I don't
Mhm.
think that's all that they probably need to know. I don't think they need all the rest of that. Just
Yeah.
their
But if they
growth
ever, I guess, question or were like, hey, what did whatever, then
Yeah.
you can say, well, I noticed that blah 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 blah, and you would have
Mm-hmm.
all of that. Okay. Once I get this made, I'm thinking I'll probably do a paper one and we can try it out a little bit before I put the effort into putting it into like a Google Sheet or a Google whatever. And then y'all think it would be, once we are sure that we like the questions and it's working well and get some feedback on that, do you guys think that that would be, like Tina, you as a coach, would you feel comfortable doing some of this too?
Yeah.
If we explained it with,
Absolutely.
to our teachers and they knew what they were looking for? And you feel like with
I think
these
if they know
questions?
that we're doing it, then
Mhm.
it'll be good.
Be
Mhm.
good. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It'll give us coaches something that those grow parts that would give us a doorway into a coaching
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
if we needed to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really perfect. And I think that, yeah, if teachers kind of don't feel like
Mhm.
surprised by it,
Mhm.
then they're a little bit more willing
Right.
to do it too. It's more of a conversation.
Right.
Okay.
It's not evaluative.
And then Kimberly, are you okay with me coming to your room this weekend, like kind of practicing this and can watch your prime time? And then we can
Absolutely.
talk about it. And then as we practice on it a couple times with like a typed out version, then we'll see if we want to change or adjust anything, and then we can put it into a Google form and start using it. Kind of go from there.
Sounds good.
All
Yeah,
right.
It's a great idea.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you all for your time today.
Thank you for having us.